I've tried and I have failed, and I am not wasting any more of my very precious garden space on these 5 vegetables ever again. And if you live in a warm weather climate like me, you may have the same 5 list. So let's go through my top 5 plants that I no longer grow. The first one is going to be similar to this guy behind me, and that's going to be traditional spinach. So spinach down here in Florida bolts super fast. Well, first off, you can only grow it one time a year, which is in the dead of winter. If you try to start it in fall or early spring when we still have nice weather, it still bolts because it needs not a hint of heat. And by not a hint, I mean like it would much prefer to live in 60-degree weather. We don't get very much of that during the day here. We get more into the 70s during our winter, but we do have like small bursts, especially in the January and February timeframe, where you can have a longer period of time. Thankfully, spinach grows very, very fast. So if you did want to grow it, you could grow it in that time period. What I prefer is going to be this guy over my shoulder, which is tropical spinaches. Traditional spinaches, things like the big leaf, the Bloomingdale, those kind of spinaches, they grow fast, but then they bolt super quick. And when they bolt, they taste kind of nasty. Well, these guys over my shoulder, this is my favorite kind. Okay, this is CISO spinach. And in fact, I even hate admitting this, but I almost don't grow anything else. Once I found this and I loved it, like I rarely grow any other tropical spinaches because this is my favorite. It's a ground cover. It does great in shade, but there's a lot of other ones. So if you don't have like a shady spot and maybe you don't particularly like this one because everyone's taste is different, there's a bunch of other ones. Like there's longevity, Okinawa, Egyptian spinach, Ethiopian kale. Then there's all the hibiscus, right? Turk's cab, Kiko's crump. I used to have that. You can get into cranberry hibiscus. Like there's a lot of different styles of what we would call tropical spinaches. And I think that it took me a long time as a gardener to kind of figure out which one I think tastes the best for me and for my husband. The other really cool thing about using a tropical spinach versus a traditional spinach is that a lot of them, like this one in particular, is a perennial. They do really well from cuttings and they grow all year round. So this one only slows down a little bit in the January, February timeframe when it gets nice and cold. It won't continue to grow. It doesn't really, I mean, I got frost, like a pretty deep frost last winter, and it didn't die back, which was very strange. I expected it to, but it didn't die back, but it did kind of stop growing. And then once it warms up, it starts growing again and it grows in abundance. And that's kind of typical with these tropical spinaches that are perennials. There are, summer greens that are not perennial. I think Ethiopian kale, I don't believe is perennial. And there's a few others where you have to grow them annually. It might work in like a South Florida where you get like absolutely no cold, but where I live here in Central Florida, we get a little bit, so it doesn't necessarily last the whole time. But these tropical spinaches are a yes. Traditional spinach, I haven't grown it in years. Now the next one on the list is going to be rhubarb. As much as I would love to grow rhubarb and a few other vegetables, things like artichokes, and asparagus to some degree, don't particularly like growing in our hot climates. I love rhubarb. I make strawberry rhubarb pie. Oh, it's so good. But rhubarb down here is just, it doesn't handle the heat well. It doesn't get enough cold hours for it to truly grow the way that it likes to grow. It is a perennial and it just struggles. And when you have a perennial that struggles year after year after year, the plant just gets weaker and weaker and you can't really harvest from it until it's a strong plant. Otherwise it dies off, it won't return. Yeah, so rhubarb is not really an option for us down here in warm weather, but Roselle is. So Roselle is what we call the Florida cranberry. It is daylight sensitive cranberry style fruit. I almost called it a vegetable. It loves to grow during the dead of summer. It doesn't need any special nutrients. It grows right in my sandy soil. And when it produces, this is a white variety, by the way, in case you're confused and you've heard of Roselle. Typically it's a red variety, but I like to grow the white one too. I find it to be a little bit more productive. But rhubarb has like that tangy, zippy taste. And I feel like Roselle is a good similar one. Now it's not exact, right? You don't get the super sour. Well, you kind of do. They kind of both are sour, but sour in like a different way. This is more like tart and that's more like sour. But you can get away with that. I think in rhubarb recipes, if you chop up your roselle, you can still get that mouth feel of the crunch because it does kind of have like a crunchy texture to the roselle. And you can get a lot of that tang. And so mixed with strawberry and roselle, it's gonna be so good. Now, if you want to use it in things like that, just be prepared that roselle bleeds its color. So if you do the red variety, whatever you're making is going to turn red. That's one reason why I like to grow the white one, because I can use it in other dishes like a strawberry rhubarb pie using roselle, but using the white one, and the strawberry pulls through a little bit more than the roselle. Roselle would turn it like a purplish red and the strawberry would be pink, which is kind of what you're going for with a strawberry rhubarb pie. So that is my main reason why I don't grow rhubarb, and I never will, because it just will not do well down here. So we talked about a fruit and we talked about vegetables. Let's talk about herbs. One of the herbs that really just does not like to grow where I live is going to be cilantro. It's kind of like spinach in a lot of ways because it bolts super fast and it just really likes cool weather, like that 60-degree weather. So you can only grow it in like January and February. If you try to grow it outside of those seasons, it will grow and it will bolt. And if it bolts, not all hope is lost. When cilantro bolts, it turns into coriander, which is the seed of the cilantro plant. So you can still get coriander if that was something you were into. I personally am one of those people that have that genetic disposition that cilantro tastes like soap. It's not horrible for me. I mean, it's something that I can handle when we go out to like eat at restaurants, but my husband absolutely hates it. He cannot stand cilantro. If even a touch of it is in any of his food, he could taste it. So like, we don't use cilantro. So it's not like a big problem for me, but I know that there's people out there that absolutely love cilantro. And I've always been curious, like as somebody who obviously can't taste like what cilantro tastes like, to me, it tastes like soap to some degree. Not as bad as real soap, like what my parents stuck in my mouth when I was a kid, but like kind of like soap. I just wish I knew what it tastes like. Like, what does it taste like to you guys? Head down in the comments, let me know. I'm very, very curious about this. Now, as a substitute, I'm told, yet I have never tried, there is a plant called cilantro, which is very similar to cilantro in that its taste is similar. And from what I've been told by people who like this stuff, cilantro is actually like a more intense cilantro. And cilantro, while it does grow well down here, it's not like a hot weather plant like the tropical spinach is. It's not going to grow through the summer season without bolting. You want to be able to grow it kind of at the same time frame that you're going to be growing your broccoli in, you know, these hot climates. So for us here in Florida, that's going to be growing it from like October to March, right? So you have a longer window to collect it, to grow it, to preserve it. You can put it in ice cube trays with oil and freeze it. You can put it in a freeze dryer. I don't know how well it dehydrates, right? So I'm not 100% sure on that one. Not all herbs dehydrate well. Oregano, like this guy, dehydrates amazing, but basil, I have some around here somewhere. Yeah, not so much. That one freeze dries better than it dehydrates. So that's some things to think about. And then of course there's good old parsley. That's actually what I use. Whenever a recipe calls for cilantro, I go with parsley because it gives that green element. It does give some of that flavor. I don't know if it tastes the same, honestly. I wish I knew, guys. I wish I knew. Now the next one in my list is number 4, and it's going to be corn. You might be wondering, why am I standing in front of tomatoes? Well, my corn has already been done for a while now, and I'm actually growing tomatoes in the same bed that I grew the corn in. And these tomatoes are going crazy, and I think I know why. And the reason why I don't grow corn and the reason why these tomatoes are doing so well is because there's synthetic fertilizer in that soil. I have found when you're growing here in Florida, particularly corn, it really does... It does seem like the corn will not produce and will not grow efficiently with the low levels of nutrients that organic fertilizers provide. Like I use compost, I use organic mulches. I am really into soil health. I use organic fertilizers and fish fertilizers and all the things, right, to feed corn. And I tried for years growing it organically. I saw on Millennial Gardener that he was like, yeah, you kind of need to use synthetic because it's just such a heavy feeder. So I started using synthetic and I got a better outcome. I was able to grow more corn, but then I fall into the challenge of all the pests and the bugs that go along with it. So then not only do you have to go with a synthetic fertilizer, then you have to like really treat for pests, which is a little heavy-handed to me. Like you're doing both things. I don't know. It's my own personal choice here, but then add on to that, I'm growing in a raised bed, and raised bed gardening with corn is kind of a challenge because corn pollination. Corn likes to pollinate based on wind, and it really requires a decent amount of corn block to allow them to pollinate. So for me, what it takes up in space, what it takes up in resources, and how I have to designate a certain bed to be synthetic at that point for probably a few years and know that the food coming out of that bed has used synthetic fertilizer, which may or may not be a problem for you guys, okay? It's not really a problem for me. We eat food from the grocery store that uses synthetic fertilizers. So I see it as kind of the same thing, but I grow my food because I want to grow it organically. It's kind of a thing that is important to me for the climate, for our health, for just knowing that we can grow food organically with the materials and the stuff that's natural in our environment. I don't know. I'm a geek about that. I think it's cool. So having to grow corn in this environment that basically all the farmers grow it just seems like pointless to me. And it's such a challenge. And it only wants to grow in certain times of the year here. And there's just so much. It's a diva. It is too high maintenance. And I'm probably not going to do it anymore. I think that was my last year, was this year. There is a wonderful little farm just down the road from me where I live that sells these bushels and bushels of grown corn locally. And I'm like, you know what? I'm not sure if they're organic or not. I don't think that they are. I don't think most corn is organic these days. I might be wrong about that. I don't know. Anyway, they have a farm. They are a little family farm. They do like sunflower picking, and it's just adorable, right? It's really cute. They have some fall stuff going on, but they also sell all their corn, and they just did their fall season of corn, and I think they're going to be selling it really soon. I saw a note on Facebook, so I think that I'll be picking up some from them this year rather than trying to continue to fight my garden for corn. We are almost to the #1 plant that I will not grow here in Florida. But before we jump into that, make sure to check out my book, Homegrown Florida Gardening Guide. If you are a Florida gardener down here, you've been struggling, maybe you're new, maybe you're from up north and you came down here and nothing seems to grow. I got you. You pick up this book. It's 30 chapters, 130 pages, a chapter for every different vegetable, and it tells you exactly how to grow it here in Florida. It's an electronic book, ebook, so you can get it downloaded within minutes. Go to my website, homegrownfloridagarden.com. The last one on our list today is going to be apples. I'm standing in front of my peach tree. I have loquats, peaches, pomegranates, bananas, starfruit, jujube. Trying to look at them all. Mandarins, lemons, jaboticaba. I have figs, elderberries, blackberries, blueberries, strawberries. I'm trying to think. I have plums. I have mulberries. I have an avocado tree. I have so many fruit trees. But apples will never make the list. I would have to move more north for apples to make the list. And there's a couple reasons. So #1, apples require chill hours. Similar to what we were talking about with rhubarb, but much more. #2, there's only 2 varieties that grow here in Florida. There's Dorset and Anna. Doesn't really matter where you live in Florida. Those are the only 2 that have low enough chill hours to grow here, and they don't grow in all parts of Florida. In my particular area, it would be a huge gamble. I get about somewhere between 250 and 300 chill hours. Yeah, huge gamble. The other thing is it requires 2 trees, so you better have plenty of space. And I would recommend getting more than 2 trees because these trees are not necessarily designed for Florida. So if you stick them in our sandy soil where we have root knot nematodes and way too quick drainage and not enough nutrients, yeah, you might lose a couple. And if you lose one of those varieties, neither will produce. That's way too much of a gamble for me. And let's not even get into pests and diseases because apple trees have a crazy amount of pests. And down here where we just get an enormous amount of pest pressure, I don't know if you're ever going to actually eat an apple. from your tree. From a disease perspective, once again, just like it's not really designed for Florida here and it's not designed for our soil, it's certainly not really designed for our intense rain and humidity and all the things that we have that apple trees don't like. So I'm going to be fighting for these 2 trees that are taking up a lot of space to grow apples of varieties that I don't even really like. Yeah, nope. I am going to definitely go with trees that I know do well here, designed for here. And if you're interested in that list, make sure to head to my website, homegrownfloridagardening.com, because I do have a list of my favorite varieties, and that does include fruits. Thanks so much for hanging out with me today. If any one of these 5 were a surprise to you, make sure to head down to the comments and let me know. I'm curious which one you will or will not be growing this year. Happy gardening, guys.